I really want to know.
Yes, I really want to know too. I really, really do.
Indeed.
Well, welcome back. Good morning. Welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, the series for anyone who manages people, projects, processes for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, the founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I explore management and leadership topics from the perspective of what not to do.
And in this episode, we are talking about one of the biggest silent killers of productivity. I should not say that too slow. Burnout.
Yeah, the word alone, it makes me tired to think about that. I mean, seriously, it is a real problem. And I actually, Sharon, it's one of the positive things to come out of COVID, honestly, was companies, people recognizing that burnout is a real thing. And sitting in front of your screen all day long, every day, and in digital online meetings, wears you out. Teams, people are running on empty. They might produce for a while, but eventually everything starts to crack. Morale becomes an issue. Creativity suffers. Quality of output, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mistake that we're going to focus on today is ignoring or brushing off those early signs. I think sometimes leaders just assume a little exhaustion is part of the job. People will push through it.
Right. We've all been told at some point to, dig deep or power through to hit that deadline, which you can do, short term, but you can't go back to that till every time. When every week feels like a sprint, week after week after week, people don't recover. They do burn out.
Yeah. Hashtag work harder does not mean,
Improve that productivity, Sharon.
Yeah. And burnout doesn't just mean people are tired, right? We're talking about emotional exhaustion, loss of motivation. You're literally detaching from the work that you may love. So basically the complete opposite of anything and everything you need for a healthy, productive team.
I was told that they were concerned about my level of apathy. They said some other stuff. I really don't care. No, but it does sneak up on you. You can feel like, hey, I'm crushing, I'm getting all this stuff done. But once week after week, if you're working those long nights, like, I don't know, Sharon, if you've ever attempted to do like multiple nights of all-nighters where you nap a little bit in between, but essentially just burn it to get something done. As a team, you might hit your deadlines, but the energy is gone. Meetings feel heavier. People are not volunteering. They're not contributing as actively. They're not speaking up about things. They're not doing anything above and beyond, anything extra. And that is usually your warning sign. If people are not willing to step it up when needed because they've already stepped it up, that's a warning sign.
Yeah, exactly. And really truthfully, like really good leaders, they learn to identify, spot, catch those early signals, and make a space for a conversation about it so that essentially you know what's going on and you know where everything's at before it gets out of hand.
That's the tricky part, making it safe for people to actually say that they're burned out without fearing that it'll make them look weak or incapable or unwilling to do what it takes to get this project live. And if you're not watching for those signs, then it's also going to create a trust issue with the manager who's not being responsive to those signals.
Yeah. And I truthfully 100% believe that when teams feel like it's okay to not just be balanced, but talk about balance and support their team in balance and make sure that everybody else is balanced, right? This is kind of a whole team sport thing. They're all more likely to take the hint, take the time, recharge, take care of themselves, which then helps them to stay productive, stay creative, stick around long term. And overall, we're not talking about lowering standards or just letting everybody get away with everything. We're talking about long-term performance, sustaining things. It has to be sustainable. It has to be consistent.
Right. As it always, it should be a great conversation. As with every episode, feel free to comment throughout the show. Send us your thoughts. Comment down in the comment section. Share your experiences. What's works, what's not working for you, how your team stay energized. We'd love to hear your stories.
All right, let's get started with some definitions.
Well, and I think about burnout. I think we described it a great way but I had a thought that came up, another way to think of it. If you're not allowing your direct reports, your team members, to then go and do something about that, it's one thing to recognize it. There's also the other half of that, which is then giving them the time, the space, so that they can recharge. Those are two different things. Because I've had managers that were really good at recognizing it and then apologize and then just like, well, keep it up. Like, sorry. Like, well, that's not helping anything. Like, I still like you, but I'm still exhausted.
I think that's part of it too, is, so all of this, the core of this starts with expectations. And often what I see is, especially highly productive people, what happens is, I like this person, they're highly productive, so now I'm going to hold them accountable to be at that highly productive state all the time, instead of saying, I understand that sometimes highly productive people, akin to artists, creators, writers, things like that, will have more productive times and less productive times, right? And so there's this expectation that everybody is always going to be at this productive peak all the time. And what ends up happening by doing that is that then you're holding people accountable at that level, and they're not able then to keep sustaining that, because they can't just power through over that. Instead you have to, think, what is a realistic level of expectation that is sustainable, that can be consistent. And I think, we don't talk a lot about the fact that people expect here, and then as people perform and produce, that expectation just kind of gradually gets picked up.
That's why you always have the conversation with the new person that comes into the role, and they're gung-ho and they're excited and all of that. And everybody else is like nervously comes over and
simmer down
a level. Well, but just because I had a warning at a previous company, somebody came up and warned and said, be very careful. So I started a job, and my wife and kids were out of state visiting her parents. And so the timing worked out. I knew I would be, onboarding and taking on a little bit more. And somebody came over, because I was working very long hours the first 2 weeks, and said basically, hey, cool your jets a little bit, because they will take everything you give them, and then they'll expect you to maintain that rate of productivity. I'm all choked up about it, clearly. No, but the other thing to think about, though, Sharon, is like burnout isn't just about exhaustion. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I'm not being recognized for those, it's an erosion of motivation, of creativity, of trust. If I'm told like, hey, we're all putting in the extra hours, it's just this weekend, as soon as we get this over the line and done. And like, I've had what I thought was a good leader that told everybody, it's like, hey, the people on this project that we worked over the weekend, I don't want to see you in the office. Like, take tomorrow off. Like, you earned it. We delivered it. We hit it. Mm-hmm. And so you need to make up the time. You need to go and relax a little bit, or take a 3-day weekend this weekend, whatever it is. Like, that was an aware leader who also recognized that this is not the norm. And so reward people for that. And that there's a recharge that happens when that happens. Again, if it's better way of stating this, burnout doesn't happen overnight. It's more of a slow leak. You don't wake up one morning exhausted. It creeps in because you're skipping breaks. You have constant deadlines. You're never feeling caught up. When leaders brush that off as normal, they're not building a resilient workforce. They're normalizing exhaustion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're not refueling, refilling, recharging. It's just use, 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 use. And so, yeah, it doesn't come back, right? It doesn't snap back. And so, and, I think about a lot about this. I know so many places I've been, and I grew up in software development, and I think one of the things that a lot of people like to complain about was the idea that, you kind of get treated like machines, right? So it's this idea of you're supposed to output a certain amount of output every day, no matter what, no matter how you feel, no matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if you have a sick kid. It doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you're having a low energy day. It doesn't matter if, you've had a different commitment outside of your normal commitments. It's just that you have to, keep delivering. And I think that this is something, and we'll talk about cultural stuff here, but I think it's something that culturally becomes very, very differentiating in an organization of whether or not you recognize people as humans or whether you think that they are machines.
Yeah. The other thing is I think it's a mistake. It's not the perpetually lazy and unmotivated that suffer burnout. They don't. They're cruising along at a comfortable speed. It's usually the opposite of that. It's your high performers, the overcommitters, the people who care the most, who hit the wall first. They've been running on fumes for a long time before anyone notices. Yeah, that's what you have to watch out for, because it's the people that you can afford the least to lose.
Yep. And so I think when we think about like how it impacts people, I think what ends up happening is, it's everything from people getting tired and sick all the way to losing their momentum, losing their motivation. A lot of times people will say, you're not acting like yourself, or, you're not as engaged as you used to be, or I don't think, you care about your work as much, like things like that.
Are you off your meds? maybe that you don't want to use that phrase.
Yeah, maybe not as appropriate. But no, I do think like it changes the way that people respond to what they do and how they work. And, I think sometimes, again, when we talk about machines, what not to do, stop thinking of people and productivity the same way that we think about machines and productivity. Machines and productivity is, consistency and output and effort and throughput and all this stuff. And I think that's important things to think about. But when we talk about burnout, machines in general, I turn them on, they run. Eventually, as long as I maintenance them, they're going to continue to run. Humans don't operate like that. You're going to deal with all kinds of things, and it stems everything from illness to injury to lack of productivity to, irritation, all kinds of things.
Yeah. I think, disengagement is a killer. I know that we've covered it in a few different times as well. Look, when burnout hits a team, you can generally feel it before you can measure it. Collaboration slows. People aren't responding quickly, or if at all. Creativity dries up, and meetings start to sound like checklists instead of conversations. That's when the culture has shifted from passion to survival. Yeah, I think of that in organizations, cultural impact of those collaboration and communication breakdowns. People stop helping each other because they're too overwhelmed. They're too busy for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was trying to think of some of I've got all these things in my head, all my thoughts in my head, and I was just thinking, I remember working at an organization one time with a group of people, and one of the people there had a relative who ended up getting diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I remember that there was a very large conversation about the level and quality of that employee's work. And, essentially, sometimes that has to be taken into consideration. And there was a lot of conversation about, well, why should that person get away with doing less work because they had, a close relative with a terminal illness when nobody else was, getting that leniency. And, the answer was, because they're a human being and because we want to make sure that they're okay. And I think when we think about the things that are going on in people's lives, if we just say, just show up anyways, like how much extra load is that putting on the people, and it's keeping them from being able to engage in the thing that they need to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people just, I don't know, people need to be treated like people.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing of, just the continual, like, just push a little bit harder, dig in a little bit deeper on that mentality creates a very toxic culture. It's a cycle for burnout where like I'm burned out, give me a little time to recover, burn out again. It's like, no, we need to go and resolve the issues there. We need to, I've shared before, like the first tech company that I worked for, the manager was really good people manager. And where I was working late on a Friday, I think I just talked about this a couple episodes back. And he was looking to lock the front door. It was a small company outside of Sacramento. And it's like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I'm going to get this done, get it ahead so that it's on time. It's like, either we need to get more people or we need to, we've misjudged what it would take to get this live. Like, Christian, like, go home. You need to be home with your young family. I had my daughter was a baby, my wife at home. He's like, go home and do this. I was trying to do the responsible thing. And he's just like, no, it's not the right thing. Like, this is just work.
Yeah.
So he prioritized the human side of things, the family aspect of that, which I really appreciated, that push in the right direction there. If you're only rewarding that hero culture, if a company's culture rewards only the people who power through everything, you're setting yourself up for turnover. You might hit a few of the deadlines, those short-term wins there, but you'll lose the trust and loyalty that actually sustains success long-term.
Yeah, I agree. And ultimately, I mean, leadership, the way that leadership responds to burnout and the way that they set up plans, to watch for burnout, I think that gets fed out to the entire culture. And so people respond to that and they say, oh, okay, so either I shouldn't tell anybody, I should just work harder and I'm going to burn myself out more, or no, the place that I work really does care about this. And so I should take care of myself, right? Because the idea is that we want to be recognized as, having actual needs.
Yeah. Thinking about like what happens if you don't recognize that this is going on and correct it within your organization. Like some of the pitfalls there. I think the biggest trap with burnout is thinking that it is temporary. Oh, we just did this one time, or it's been a couple times. Things will calm down after this project or this quarter. But if temporary then becomes the norm, then you're just training your team, your organization to live in crisis mode. So eventually something has got to give, and it's usually your best people.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of I would call them careless errors, right? And careless errors isn't so much that you don't care, it's that you don't have the attention, the focus, the motivation to make sure that what you're doing is done at a quality level. And so you start seeing really quality just kind of goes downhill.
Yeah, if people become disengaged, if there's that team detachment, where people are just doing the bare minimum because they're trying to repair. They're not given the space to do that. I think we've covered it. It affects innovation. People aren't willing to speak up. They just want the meeting to end so they can get back and finish their work and maybe get home close to on time today. It also long term can cause a reputation. Some damage to your reputation of the company, of the brand, because the word gets out. new people coming in, they are enthusiastic. It's like that new employee with full of ideas. They're excited to be in that new role. And the fact that other employees feel that they have to come over and temper your enthusiasm, like that's not great. I would rather they be surrounded by people that are excited to have them there and can't wait, like have ideas like we should go there, share it at the next team meeting. If you've got ideas for this, bring your outside perspective in as the new person perspective. It's fantastic. And I've been at those companies. I know you have. You start the job and where it suddenly everybody tries to like slow it down and you know what? Just keep your ideas to yourself. This is the way that we do it here, and here's why. And it's demoralizing.
Yeah, well, and I think it keeps people from being creative, right? It keeps people from not just not getting excited about their work, but one of the ways that businesses grow and flourish and become successful is all those innovative ideas that come in from other people. And I think sometimes when people are burned out, like they don't have creative ideas. They're just like, I really don't want to add anything extra to this. I'm just going to show up, check my boxes and go home. And the business really benefits from people being supported and being creative and being innovative.
I mean, that's how you grow it. That's how healthy growth of your organization comes from happy, healthy, well-rounded employees. When your leadership team ignores burnout, they're not avoiding the problem, whatever problems are that are driving that. They're really outsourcing those problems to the next resignation letter. They're just moving the goalpost. You can't build a healthy culture on exhaustion. You just can't. Once that trust erodes, it's a long road back. It takes a lot of time to repair that damage. And it might be that you can't until you get new faces in there that weren't traumatized.
Yes, exactly. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think, there's a level of energy and, we kind of joke about, bringing new blood into a business, but I think there is something to be said for the idea that sometimes when you have a burned out team, shaking it up or bringing in, somebody who's got a little bit more energy helps. But, wouldn't it be nice if, you can do everything you can to avoid that? And I do want to bring up the fact that sometimes you can't prevent burnout. Sometimes burnout is just a natural result of everybody going heads down to work on a project and to complete it. And we've had other episodes where we've talked about not celebrating wins. And I think one of the ramifications of not celebrating wins and not having those kind of cyclical things at the end of a project is that you are not giving people recovery from the hard work they've done. And so then what ends up happening is then you're, perpetuating that burnout without giving them the chance to kind of, renew and refresh.
Yeah. I mean, that is something where it's one thing to recognize it. It's another thing to make space for it, to allow them to go and recharge. I mean, I look at this too, like maybe this doesn't fit perfectly, but it just kind of came to mind. But, multiple companies where there was, budget set aside for training, for internal training, for classes, whatever. And I was even told as part of like new employee orientation that at both of these companies that we want you to use this. Like we will make space for this because we understand that you need to continually develop your skills. But the culture, at least in the organizations I was in, were that you were penalized for taking a vacation or going and using your annual education time, dollars, whatever that was budgeted there. And I remember having a conversation in the leadership team where my director was chastised for unspent education funding. And there were some, like I would tell my direct reports, like, go take it. Like you need to take it. You need to spend these dollars, have none of it left. Other managers, other peers, they were afraid to allow their people because our director, our direct manager frowned upon it. So I mean that again, there's something wrong with that. And it wasn't surprising that then nobody wanted to work for that director. Everybody wanted to move under it. And I'd be like, I work for the company. That happens to be the person who I report to today, but I'm going to follow the company and the organizational policy. And there were some rough spots because I went down that path. But
well, and how many places, promote benefits like unlimited PTO, but then the culture is like, don't take more than, 2 days a year.
Is that a red flag for you? Because I've heard people talk about that. I've worked at a couple places that moved to that model. The reality is that there was never time to take any time off.
No.
What are you kidding me? Like they didn't give that space. So you felt like, because I've always tried to be responsible with my vacation, out and far in advance as possible. If there was some other deadlines around it, if there was flexibility, to try and be flexible there and adjust the schedule. But you know how it is when you've got plans and you've booked flights or cruises, when you've got family coming over, like those are fixed dates. Yeah. I never want my employees to feel guilty about being gone for a planned activity.
No. When we were younger, we would go on vacations, and I remember, we would go on vacation and then suddenly there would be a crisis or a fire, or can you hop on your laptop and do this one thing or solve this one problem? And we used to be like, well, of course, we really want to help you. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of your clients or take care of your employees or whatever, but I would not now. Like now, yeah. I mean, look, I planned ahead. I made sure all my stuff was taken care of. There's not very many things that are so urgent that I'm going to give up my vacation time to do it now.
I will admit, and again, because I have a problem, I'm a workaholic, but my wife didn't know that I brought my laptop to Hawaii. And we were at the Marriott in Kauai, and those that have been out there to know. And I was sitting up on the patio looking down at the giant swimming pool with the fountains everywhere. And my wife was down there, and I was on a work conference call. And my work, I'll say that the CEO actually jumped on it. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Why are you on the call?" I'm like, "This was important. It was with this client." And so I joined it, and they were kind of laughing about that. And then unfortunately, like towards the end, thankfully, and my wife went looking for me. So I was up on the lanai looking over on a work call. And yeah, it was not a very friendly dinner that night.
If you had it to do over, and I mean this like seriously, right? If you had it to do over, if you could go back to your younger self, would you say, dude, like enjoy your vacation?
Oh, of course. No one expected me to do it. I was like, I don't know what I was. I had a problem then. I would not do that today. But.
We talked to leadership, right? So a lot of this show is really to talk to leadership and managers and all of that. But let me go the other direction. I don't care what role you're in. A lot of you guys, that are out there spend a lot of time really taking care of things and really keeping everything held together. And you think that if you take a week off, your whole world is going to fall apart. And I promise you, it is very much more important for you to take that time and recharge yourself and take a break, a complete break. Just shut everything off. Do not take out. Honestly, one of the reasons I started cruising was because there was no Wi-Fi when I started cruising, and it was very, very expensive to even like make a phone call or anything like that. And so it forced me to shut all of my stuff down and take a break. Yeah. And to this day, part of the reason I really enjoy doing that is because it forces me to turn everything off and go away and really take a break and recharge. And I really encourage people to do that, honestly.
That was my thing used to be for the exact same reasons. Because I was early on. I had a cell phone because I worked for the mobile phone company when it launched in the mid 90s. And so I had early, they were very expensive in phone plans. But I love like camping the Sierra Nevadas or in the Cascades. or later in the Rockies, where there's no signal, there's
No
nothing out there.
signal.
You have even with the satellite phone, you've got to hike a bit to find a place where you can get a signal.
If you have a satellite phone and you're trying to do work, you have a problem.
Yeah, right. But anyway, but essentially places where you need bear mace and bear canisters to go. It is fantastic, but it's for that reason as well. It's like, do I like sleeping on the hard ground? No, of course not. But no, the hiking, the camping, being out there, and the quiet.
I like no emails.
Yeah, no emails. It's a nice thing. Well, thinking though about strategies for overcoming this issue, and we talked about. Yeah, what was it? Keep your medication. Is that what you said? No, but I think by watching for those early indicators, so those subtle signs of, hey, we're starting to miss deadlines, where people are, they're present, but they're kind of disengaged, or they're irritable. There's not the level of input of creativity that you've become accustomed to, like watching for those signs. And then, I know that like you're good at this, Sharon, of like asking people flat out, like on a one-on-one, like, how is this going? What else is going on? Is there anything that's blocking you in the things that you're trying to do? Because the cure for burnout isn't grand gestures. Like, we have to go do this big thing. It's being consistent. It's regular one-on-ones, honest check-ins. Like, how is this really going? Are you blocked here? How can I help you? And then adjusting and giving realistic workloads. It's about creating an environment where people don't have to pretend that they're fine just to keep their jobs.
Yeah, I think, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Productivity is not about working 8 hours, right? It's a fallacy. Productivity is setting goals, setting priorities, and accomplishing goals. And for some people, sometimes, they can do that much quicker on one day, and then it's going to take them longer on a different day. But I do think balancing that idea of balancing a realistic amount of work with the ability that they've got in the moment, I think really helps them to minimize the risk of burnout, at least.
Yeah. I like jokingly, we're talking about, creating safe spaces, within the organization, but really, you need to, people need to feel safe and comfortable in having those conversations. I always appreciate, I've worked for a couple companies. This one that was worked for a small company. We were acquired out in Boston. And I remember that it was something that I adjusted to very quickly. I would see like the leadership team, and they would have these like yelling, like you'd hear them shouting at each other, like dude, like very passionate. No, but it was all friendly. And I'm like, I actually fit right in with that. Like to go and have that where you could be passionate, be like, no, that's a stupid idea. Listen to this. and then be like, you're angry and stuff.
Like a good yelling. Like, I got it. A good yelling.
Like, oh, hey, have you eaten lunch yet? No. Okay, let's go. Okay, all right. And we're fine, And so I still, I think it was, I had a wonderful experience in those 3.5 years that were there until we got acquired again. It allowed people to speak freely, speak open and honestly around it, to show their passions around that. It was an adjustment for quite a few people. They're like, oh my gosh. And I've never worked at a place that was this loud. I'm like, it feels like family, right? But I think what makes that work, that level of open conversation, of open, honest discussion, is that leaders have to go first. If I never take a break, if I'm answering emails at midnight, that's the standard that I'm setting. And modeling balance, it's not a weakness. It's leadership that actually lasts. You have to model that behavior.
Yeah, I agree. And I've talked to many, many other leaders about this. And essentially, the people will do what the leaders do, right? Leaders set the tone. So I think you're absolutely right. I think you have to model that, not just openness and not just, willingness to talk about it, but also balancing your own schedule and showing them, that you're taking time off as well.
Yep. And discuss that openly about that.
Mhm.
Encourage breaks, encourage vacations. I know that we talk about this all the time, like the no meeting blocks, which mostly doesn't work out, but we try to do that. I'm trying to do you're doing it too, like the no meeting Friday. And really what that means
Let's
is
call it the
that,
less meeting Friday.
right. But you know what it is though? What it is. And I don't have a problem with this. It's that it's not no one can automatically schedule me for a meeting on Friday. It's
Right.
only the ones that I allow into the schedule. And I
Yes.
do push back on stuff
Yes.
where I'd be like, no, look, I'm working on specific things, on specific deliverables. If it fits in with that schedule, sure. Let's go ahead and meet on Friday. So it's a much more sustainable rhythm to the business when you have that balanced approach.
Yeah, we definitely want to put something together that is going to allow people to continue to be productive and feel like they're getting, the ability to do what they need to do and not feel overwhelmed all the time.
It's also this idea of focusing on outcomes, not the method for achieving the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is it's a newer concept. It's again, I realize that there are organizations where you have ticket givers and ticket takers. And there are some, especially lower level, newer into an industry or whatever, where you only do the items where there's a ticket open, you go and do that kind of thing. So more junior roles are usually like that. The more senior you get up into management, project management for sure, is where here's a list of things to go and do. Now leave me alone so I can go get those things done. And it's due at the end of the week. How I use my time to do that, as long as I'm delivering on time, like don't come and stand over me and micromanage me. I'm not a ticket taker. Like do this first, now do this next. Like I'm gonna stand here, wait for that. All right, let's move to the next step.
Right. Yeah. Treat people like grownups, right? And I think when you set up those sustainable balance, then I think a couple things happen, right? So first of all, I think you get a better organic idea of what your team is actually capable of. You're not, trying to put gas on it all the time, trying to make it do what you want it to do. It's more, what is my team capable of? Now I can plan workloads around sustainable effort. And I think that gives you a better idea of what you actually can set goals around when you do it that way.
It's also, it's the difference between a career and a job.
Yes.
And this idea of long-term retention, if you're thinking about, hey, these are, I remember, saying this, my time at Microsoft was this, like our this is a Microsoft hire, like you work for the company. And so there's things that are done a little different in this organization. I changed and moved organizations and things were done very, very different over there. But this idea, this concept of, and not every manager agreed with it or treated it this way, but is that, hey, they were hired in and this is a good Microsoft hire, somebody that we know we want in here. So that phrasing kind of stuck in my mind to think about. If I'm thinking long-term retention of the person, what's the right thing for this person's career? They're outgrowing their role. They're getting burned out here. Maybe a different role is different. Maybe they're interested in this other team, expanding their career. They've been in this role for 3-4 years. They're ready to try something new. I'd rather keep them in the company and help them move into that other role than lose them out. Really, that's something that I, as a manager, as a people manager, thought about all the time. Like, what is the right career move for this employee to retain them for the company's benefit long term?
Yeah, I think that's really important, that you think about people holistically and what's going to motivate them long term versus what they're going to do just today.
So thinking about best practices, like what are your recommendations, Sharon, for somebody that is in their organization, they see this as a problem?
I mean, I definitely think you should check in with people, right? This crazy idea, right? Crazy ideas. Check in on your people. Treat them like human beings. Find out how they're doing. Make sure that there's space for them to be able to open up and talk about issues, and whether that's with you or HR or some sort of a medical professional. Like, I'm not saying everybody needs to be therapists, but what we're talking about is creating a culture where people feel safe to, recognize when they are struggling with things.
I'm a big fan of doing individual and team-based organizational, like personality testing type scenarios. And there's a lot of the things that are out there that's like that. That what's them like the Myers-Briggs based data analysis around that, so that you better understand the motivations of your people and the communication styles, where a lot of times that can help uncover while there might be some abrasion between two different employees, and understand there are different work styles. Some people that prefer and perform better when they are individual contributors, that they are just because they're good at their jobs doesn't mean that they would be good people managers, or that have any interest in doing that. They might be good at it, yet it exhausts them, and they might enough to that they want to leave the role.
Yeah.
So understanding the styles, the delivery methods, the preferences of the personalities of your people, which again comes from talking to them.
Crazy idea.
And you can go get professional help, like through these different consulting groups, to come in and do a profile, and it could be a game changer for helping you figure out organizationally, hey, here's what changes we need to make because of the majority of our people.
Yeah. And I think another big thing to remember from a best practices perspective, and it kind of leaks into the calls to action a little bit too, is, make sure you're leaving space in between things for
recovery.
Everything from breaks to vacations to recovery to wellness, all of those types of things. Just make sure you're leaving space in between things.
Recovery should be part of every project plan. I always talk about my favorite part is the post-mortem, is the learning at the end of that delivery. But recovery should be part of your plan. We celebrate launches when something's new, but we rarely celebrate the rest portion of it. So you need to build in space, as you said, for people to breathe, to reflect, to regroup. You'll get better work, better ideas, and a team that actually wants to stick around for the next project, which is important there. I realize that sometimes the next project's already begun. There's overlap that happens there. You still need to give time for that post-mortem and reflection at the end of that first project.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to build sustainable performance, you need to measure things differently. So don't just track output. You need to track like the energy levels of the team. I don't know what the best way to do that is. Surveys, one-on-ones, and your notes, but being intentional about, figure out, this is one of those things where you have to translate qualitative measurements into quantitative measurements. You can do it. You just come up with your model there. Ask your people what drains them, what fuels them. That's the real data that drives that long-term success, understanding that.
Yeah, I think if you put into practice, understanding that you do need to do that, scheduling it, following up on it, it'll make a big difference. So
calls to action. I think doing a wellness check, that's like my top of the list there. Having those regular one-on-ones, that's actually, I see where I've noticed where managers starting letting they slack off to that, where they just reschedule, push it back. And it's like suddenly what's supposed to be a weekly one-on-one, you've not met with them for a month. Like there's something going on there. Maybe the manager's getting burned out. Yep, exactly. Which means maybe you or your team needs to review the work balance that you have. Like how much work do you have? Are you really keeping up with what you've got, or do you need to look through things that you can simplify, automate, or eliminate from your workload? Yeah, and you need to actually take a vacation once in a while too. And you need to talk about it, prepare for it. Again, vacation responsibly. Like you don't just disappear right at a critical moment, unless, hey, this is planned in weeks and weeks and months in advance, and there's always going to be a critical moment. But there's handoffs. There's a process in place to handle those questions. Or hey, maybe you make yourself available if there are emergencies. Here's my number where I'm going to be. But I think more fundamentally, if you haven't checked in with your team lately, maybe start there. Not about project status, but about how people are feeling. Sometimes it can be one of the most powerful productivity tools is just having that genuine connection, that conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is very much a lead by example. If you're not having those one-on-ones, then they're not going to be having those conversations with each other, unless it's about you and what they hate about you.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Please be sure to follow us. Make sure that you subscribe out to the Project Failure Files YouTube. And if you want to find us, you go to YouTube and you search for Project Failure Files. I think that's how search works. And please let us know if there's any topics you'd like us to cover, what you liked about, what you didn't like about this episode. Did we leave something out? How dare us for doing that? I doubt it. It's not likely.
Nah, probably not. Oh, thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.
Next Monday. We'll be back. See you later. Bye.
Bye.